What's up, guys? Ghostboy here today, June 19th, is the 1 year anniversary of my last day of high school. I graduated a month later for some reason. So I figured to celebrate this glorious day, I would give you all my top 20 overall favorite movies. Now, this list is probably going to change in about 5 minutes. But, if it changed in 5 minutes, I wouldn't be making this video. But yeah, this is my list at the moment, and I got some honorable mentions towards the end of the video. Yeah, I don't think I'll be doing a favorite bands list anytime soon, because that changes a lot. And I listen to music a lot more than I watch movies. So, that's probably not going to happen for like another decade, honestly. But, hey, it's while we're here, we may as well do the movies. Also, one more thing before we get into this. I narrowed it down to one film per series, because that would be more interesting, so yeah, that's it. Now, let's get into the list. Kicking off this list is Back to the Future, one of the most clever and most exciting films I've ever seen. This sci-fi classic really showed the effects of time travel and how changing the past can really put an impact on our future. A teenager known as Marty McFly, unintentionally goes back to 1955 and meets both of his parents when they were his age and weren't even in love yet. It was really exciting to see him go on this journey of meeting the younger version of his parents while also making the future better for them in the process. Doc Brown, of course, is a fun character, and the chemistry between him and Marty is just, incredible, and they just make a great team. This movie is just fucking brilliant. It's incredibly rewatchable as well. Honestly, I think anyone who's seen it could agree with that. And that's why it's on the list. Number 19, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Now, Scott Pilgrim and Ramona Flowers are two of my favorite movie characters ever. And this movie is just another level of genius. It's fun, it's funny, it's full of great characters, and it's full of great dialogue. I'll be honest, the overall plot of this movie was very confusing, and it still is. But that does not change how awesome it is. It's like watching a bunch of video game cutscenes with really funny and well-spoken dialogue, and then it'll go from Scott's band Sex Bomb, might start a cover band for that in the future, I don't know, playing a gig, to Scott literally fighting Ramona's ex-boyfriends to the death for some reason, and when he uses his finishing move, they turn into coins. It's like he's in a real-life video game. Like I said, it confused the shit out of me, and it still does, but still loved every minute of it. I am in lesbians with this movie. Coming in at number 18, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Captain America is probably my favorite MCU character. As much as I love the other two movies, Winter Soldier is easily my favorite. What puts this one above the first Avenger in Civil War is that I don't have any issues with it. The action is better, the backgrounds are better to look at, and the characters I think are better too. I really don't like, this is an unpopular opinion, I really don't like the dispute between Steve and Tony in Civil War. I thought that kind of made the experience a little less enjoyable. And the first Avenger, the first Avenger just didn't tell as good of a story. While I still love both those movies, Winter Soldier's better. Winter Soldier was packed with memorable moments, like when we figure out that Bucky is the villain this whole time after being brainwashed by Hydra. Like, just seeing the interactions between him and Steve, and Bucky not only not remembering Steve, but not even remembering himself either. It's fucked up, man. Like, there's so much emotion in this film, and it's got the best action of the Captain America trilogy, and for those reasons, it's my favorite of the Captain America trilogy. Coming in at number 17 is an animated film. Treasure Planet, Disney's underrated sci-fi masterpiece, retells the story of Treasure Island in space. The way this movie mixes 2D and 3D animation is beyond incredible, and we're just left with an ocean of stunning visuals, and you can tell that the creators really put their all into it. This is easily the best retelling of a story I've ever seen. It's almost like Treasure Island meets Star Wars, but with a lot of original ideas as well. You got your hero, Jim Hawkins, who goes on a voyage to Treasure Planet to live out his dreams of finding the place, and at the same time help his mom rebuild the Benbow Inn by getting all the treasure so they can afford doing that. The bond between Jim and John Silver is just incredible. The action is great, and the adventure is just an awesome experience. Number 16, the Lego Movie. You'd think a movie where the characters are literally children's toys would suck ass, but you'd be wrong. This film, what it does is it takes the way that we used to play with Legos when we were kids and throws in a story about the chosen one, which is kind of a cliche in movies. Yet it makes for one of the freshest and most creative films of the last decade. This is one of those movies that balances the silly and the serious incredibly well. The main hero, Emmett, is just impossible not to love. He's hilarious, he's energetic, but he starts off as very dim-witted, with no experience, and then he becomes the most developed character in the entire film. The script is also fucking brilliant. Like I said, much like with the movie itself, balances the serious and the silly incredibly well, and you never really see the punchlines coming. Everyone who was casted for this just nailed the performances, the action is awesome, and it won't hesitate to be funny when it wants to. Well, it's a comedy film, so obviously it won't. And when it is, you know they made the right choice. At number 15, we have Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now this is the definition of a solid adventure film. Indiana Jones is a fucking badass. He got the smarts, he got the cardio, he got the years of fight in him. Just awesome. This, of course, was his cinematic debut, and man, did it radiate powerful energy. We all know the story. Archaeologist Indiana Jones goes on a journey to find the Lost Ark of the Covenant, and then comes into contact with a group of Nazis who are after the exact same thing. When you got an explorer and a group of Nazis in the same setting, you just know fists will be flying. And that's exactly what happened. Take all that along with Indiana Jones being one of the most likable movie protagonists, as well as one of the most fun to watch, and seeing him fight and kill a bunch of psychotic racists, and you got a very enjoyable movie. Number 14, Peter Jackson's King Kong. My God. Just my God. He really did this justice, didn't he? This is the ultimate King Kong experience. First hour and a half is pretty good, you know, there's some good dialogue, some nice interactions, especially between Carl and Anne? Is that her name? I think her name is Anne. In, like, the first half of the movie, which is what I'm talking about. But then we get to Skull Island, one of my favorite movie settings. It just doesn't get more badass than this. From the second they encounter the natives, to the second after the giant bug fight, that dinosaur chase scene is the best part of this whole film. It's epic, it's exciting, it's a blast to watch. And let's not forget the star of the whole thing. Big Monkey. Even though he's an ape. Big Monkey is out here fighting dinosaurs and saving a woman. It's fucking badass. The level of badassness is through the roof with this movie, and that's what puts it up this high. Number 13, Monsters, Inc. How the fuck could I possibly leave this off the list? This was my childhood. Growing up in the 2000s, this was always one of my main go-tos when looking for a movie to watch. Pixar really did a good job depicting what the monster world would look like and how it would function. You got your protagonists, Mike and Sully. Sully encounters a little girl thinking she's poisonous. She turns out not to be poisonous, and then he spends the rest of the film trying to protect her, and then shit hits the fan. No matter how many times I watch this movie, it always makes me laugh. Especially the first couple of scenes where Sully encounters Boo for the first time, and he's scared shitless of her. You can't tell me, you cannot fucking tell me that you didn't laugh your ass off the first time you saw that scene. You just can't say a negative thing about Monsters, Inc. It's funny, it's unique, full of great characters, and it's nostalgic. So for those reasons, it remains in the top 13. Number 12, Step Brothers. I don't think anybody would disagree that this is easily one of the funniest movies of all time. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly play these two lazy guys with single parents who end up marrying each other, which makes them stepbrothers. There really isn't much to say on why this film is amazing other than it's fucking hilarious. If you've seen this and you didn't crack a single laugh, I'm convinced that you're not a human. Alright, number 11. Just Garzon. That was amazing. I should be above this now. This is my favorite horror movie of all time. For those of you that don't know, this film, for Shit. For those of you that don't know this film, it's about these metalheads, right? That form a band and call it Deathgasm. I fucking said Deathgasm. Alright, I'm done. And then play riffs that unlock a demon apocalypse onto New Zealand. This is just a fun experience. And what makes this movie clever is that it pretty much tells a fictional story based on the whole satanic metalhead stereotype. Any of you guys that, are into heavy metal have definitely know about this stereotype. And it adds a whole lot of gore, murder, death, demons, foul language, and maybe some metal here and there. Okay, a lot of metal. You're literally watching a group of guys fighting demons that they unintentionally summoned, using sex toys out as a weapon at one point. And then in the final act, the only way to send them back to hell is to play the guitar backwards. And it was awesome. If you're into metal and want to see a movie that has a lot of metal and gore, then I highly recommend giving this one a watch. We're now in the top 10. Starting off the top 10, The Great Outdoors. Another fantastic comedy film. I consider this John Candy and Dan Aykroyd's best film. The Ripleys go on a vacation in the woods, and the Craigs, their other family members, come surprise them by joining them in their vacation uninvited. This movie is just filled to the brim with memorable moments and quotable dialogue. Almost every conversation between Chet and Roman is a blast to listen to for some reason. And then there's just too many other scenes that'll either make you laugh or just have you hooked. So the memories of watching this when I was a kid are another reason why this is in my top 10, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Number 9, we have the Christmas classic, Home Alone. One of the most brilliant movies of all time, and another major part of my childhood. What do I really need to say besides, Kevin, an 8-year-old, is accidentally left home by his family during Christmas break, and 2 bandits spy on him, and he eventually loads his house with booby traps to torture the bandits, and it's one of the greatest things ever to be added in a film. Kevin's family is terrible. He gets left behind by accident, and we later see how brave he is by defending his house from the bandits. He's a kid with great integrity, unlike his family members, and it just makes the experience better. Also, that scene where he protects his house is one of the greatest movie moments known to man. If you think otherwise, you're a passionate liar. Case closed. Number 8 is The DoOver. Now, most of you probably say that Netflix movies kind of suck, and I kind of agree. But man, I just had too much fun watching this one. So the story is 2 guys, Charlie and Max, David Spade and Adam Sandler, with very shitty lives, fake their deaths and move to Puerto Rico, but also take the identities of the 2 most wanted men in the country. They come across plenty of things along the way, like a bald guy with a bat, a bunch of guys with guns, Max's ex-wife, which is probably the deadliest thing they faced, and of course, we can't forget the gymnast. It was really exciting seeing them fight through the situation and eventually get better lives. And then we also see Charlie get revenge on his former family, who also treated him like shit, and Max reunited with his family. We're also seeing a lot of development from the 2. They've been through so much. They've made a lot of mistakes. Now they pretty much have their shit together. This is probably, I can't really think of any other ones, the only Netflix movie that I can actually say I love. Number 7 is another Disney animated film, Atlantis: The Lost Empire. This is the best Disney movie, in my opinion. It was a new direction for them to be taking, and everybody hated it for some reason. I guess people just prefer the wholesome side of Disney. This movie just does everything so perfect. It's got memorable characters, great action sequences, great cast, funny jokes from time to time, and at least 90% of action movies should have a shitload of explosions. Milo Thatch, in my opinion, is probably the most underrated Disney character. He does not get enough credit for his smarts, his likability, the way he interacts with people, and of course the level of courage and bravery he shows in the final battle against Rourke and his crew. He literally goes from a dim-witted linguist to a fucking war hero. You just can't top him. And this animation is just some of the best I've ever seen. These are the same guys who worked on films like Beauty and the Beast, Hunchback of Notre Dame, The Lion King, and yet I think their best visuals were in Atlantis. It's just that stunning. Disney just doesn't get better than this. Number 6, School of Rock. Now, what can you say about School of Rock that hasn't really been said already? When it comes to memorable films, this falls deep into that category. So, like, it goes so deep in the category that you can dig through the entire universe and you still won't find it. This movie probably has my favorite script of all time. There isn't a single line that you can't quote. Jack Black is probably my favorite actor. Every line he says and every movement he makes just shows us how much fun he's having. And this movie perfectly This movie perfectly depicts that. It's kind of a tongue twister there. He's upbeat. He's energetic. He's having the time of his life. And there was a period in 8th grade, at least I think it was 8th grade, where I would literally watch this every single day. So, for those memories and the good vibes, I just had to put this in my top 6. And also, rest in peace, Kevin Clark. Alright, top 5. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Now this is the definition of a memorable movie. Well, actually, School of Rock kind of was, but I needed more things to say. Kevin Smith hasn't really made a lot of good movies, but this is easily his best one, and it's one of the greatest movies ever. Jay and Silent Bob are 2 of the greatest characters ever put on the screen. You got these 2 funny and really entertaining characters going on an adventure to Hollywood to stop a movie being made about them. It's pretty based. They run into these 4 women, 3 of which want them dead, and they're eventually being hunted by the police. It's just so damn funny. And I don't think I'd seen more cameos in any other film than this. I mean, they went to Hollywood, so it's not surprising. They literally go through hell and back to stop a movie about them being made, just to be a part of the film instead. Like I said before, it's funny as hell, it's action-packed, it's full of stupidly amazing dialogue, and it's got a great cast, including the cameos. Yeah, they are supposed to be here today. Don't know. You are supposed to be here today, don't they? Fuck. Number 4, Grown Ups. Alright, going back to the topic of good vibes in a comedy film, Grown Ups basically drives this point home for me. You got these 5 male adults who do a bunch of guy things during summer vacation. This is just a really fun and relatable movie. And there really isn't a single bad thing I can say about it aside from, well, it's not as funny as I remember, but it is my favorite comedy of all time, mainly because of nostalgia and the fun experience of watching it. It's still funny. It makes me laugh, but it's not as funny as I remember. I can literally watch this every day for a week straight, and I won't get tired of it. Although the next week I'll probably have to take a break. And the cast. Holy shit. You got Adam Sandler, Kevin James, David Spade, Chris Rock. Such a perfect cast for a comedy film, even if it's not the funniest thing in the world. But like I said, it's still funny. And we're finally in the top 3. The podium, I shall say. So, kicking off the top 3, Jurassic Park. This was originally number 1. I think number 1 actually changed like 3 or 4 times. This is by far the most... my glasses are falling off. This is by far the most exciting movie I've ever seen. I somehow loved it, like, the first time I saw it when I was 6. Fucking 6! It was one of the few adult movies, if you want to call it that. Even though it was more of a teen movie, but it was more aimed towards adults than kids. So it was an adult movie compared to kids. That didn't scare me as a child. There were scenes where I was like, damn! But that's about it. One of the things I love most about this film is that it puts the audience on a thrill ride of people bringing dinosaurs back from the dead. And then literally make a fucking tourist attraction out of them. And then eventually seeing those dinosaurs eat people. That T-Rex scene is one of my favorite, all-time favorite movie scenes. I still vaguely remember the first time I saw it. I was really excited to see what would happen, and it paid off. But of course, the scene where he gets eaten off the toilet, that did kind of, I was like, whoa. Damn. Of all the movies that have stood the test of time, Jurassic Park easily did it best. I would be an asshole if I left this off the list. And here it is in my top 3. My runner-up is Kung Fu Panda 2, my favorite animated film of all time. And this was also number 1, actually. I had to really think about what my favorite movie actually was, but we'll get to that when we get to number one. This is the definition of a perfect animated sequel. It does everything, and I do mean everything, that would make an animated sequel stand out more than the original. It ups the story, it ups the excitement, it builds on the characters, it doubles the action, it doubles the laughs. It gave us a much more evil and malicious villain who we wanted to see die even more so than we did for Tai Lung. It digs deep into the backstory of Po and how he ended up being raised by a damn goose. I also love the fact that Po is now a part of the Furious Five and isn't being treated like a nuisance. He's a part of the team and is protecting the valley. Po is also my favorite movie character of all time. He's so funny, he's just so energetic. He's got moves for days. He's just the best. The animation is also stunning. And if there's one thing the Kung Fu Panda movies can do perfectly, besides everything I just said, is make landscapes. They can, like, the landscapes in these movies, in the whole trilogy, not just in the second one, are just beautiful. You just can't say enough good things about this film. It's just a phenomenal work of art from start to finish. Kung Fu Panda 2 is hands down my favorite animated movie of all time, and I cannot recommend it enough. However, there's just one movie that sticks with me a tiny bit more. But before we get to number one, I got 5 honorable mentions that I want to talk about real quick. So let's get into the honorable mentions. Starting with WreckIt Ralph, a really heartfelt, beautifully animated, and downright hilarious animated movie about an arcade game villain who just wants to be a good guy. Easily my favorite modern Disney film. Next movie I want to talk about is Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. I really wanted to include this on the list. I really did. But I like the other movies better. Sorry. Now, this movie literally mixes CGI and comic book animation and makes a story that has compelling characters, stunning visuals, great action sequences, and a fantastic soundtrack. Next is Rise of the Planet of the Apes, my favorite of the Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy. It did a fantastic job introducing Caesar into the cinematic world, and as far as origin stories go, this is easily one of the best. Next is Ghostbusters, another huge part of my childhood. It really mixes comedy and horror so well, with a great cast, a great script, and too many memorable moments. And finally, in the honorable mentions category thing, is Happy Gilmore. If you know me well, you know that I love Adam Sandler, and this is easily one of the funniest movies he has ever started. Alright guys, number one, my favorite movie of all time is Avengers Endgame. This has been a huge cliche ever since it dropped in theaters. I didn't see it in theaters, unfortunately. Motherfuckers were praising the shit out of this movie, and I never understood why until I finally watched it earlier this year. Though it didn't become my favorite movie until last month. Big cliche? Absolutely. But you know what? It has every fucking right to be a cliche. I don't think I've ever seen a movie so diverse in its characteristics. Like, you got so many great characters we've all grown to love in the span of 11 years that we've gotten to see so much growth from. And the beginning of the film deals a lot with loss and failure. We see that the heroes who survived the snap are dealing with the fact that they lost the fight. They failed to kill Thanos, and now half of the universe is wiped out. Then later on, Thor kills Thanos, and it was one of the least satisfying death scenes ever. Pretty much. Given everything that already happened. Then you jump 5 years later, and they're still dealing with it. And of course, later we get to the part where everyone jumps on board to bring everyone back to the future style. There's just so much to be said about this film, but what makes it stand out to me the most epic movie scene of all time. It's called Endgame for a reason, guys. It builds up the final battle in a way that cannot be beaten. From the second Iron Man, Cap, and Thor confront Thanos to the second after Thanos disappears, it's just genius levels of genius. The portal scene just gets me every time, especially when we see everybody coming through the portals at once with Alan Silvestri's score in the background. And then, Avengers! Assemble. That's all I'm going to say about that part. And I think we can all agree that both Steve and Tony's story arc were beautifully ended. Tony's death hit me in the feels really hard, and Cap got what he always wanted. He got to be reunited with his girl after 70 plus years. The universe was safe, and now he can rest. He can be free to be with his girlfriend because the universe is now safe from destruction. Also, let's not overlook the credits scene, alright? Especially, or not especially actually, just where it's showing the cast and Alan Silvestri's score plays in the background. It's like watching a virtual high school graduation. I know what I'm talking about. I had one prior to my in-person graduation. And like I said before, there's a lot to talk about with Endgame. However, I pretty much talked about all I wanted to talk about. Avengers Endgame is my favorite movie of all time. And that does it for this video, guys. Hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. Kind of the same thing, but I don't care. Hope you like my glasses. So I like these glasses. And and new angle too. I don't know if I'm going to film all my videos on this angle. I probably will, because it's actually better scenery like that. And yeah. And to all the class of 2020 who finished high school the same day as me. Cheers. Cheers. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.